Hi, my name is Rahul Chauhan, founder of India's leading corporate travel management platform, RoomsXpert.com. Today we have got a very exciting guest with us. She is Chandrika Sultania. She runs a hotel, a very boutique hotel in Gurgaon. I would like to ask Chandrika to introduce herself and let us know about something about her property and where it is located.
Hi, Rahul. It's always a pleasure and an inspiration to speak to you, and I'm eager about today's conversation. Before I start off about the property, let me say a few lines about myself. I'm Chandrika Sultania. I'm a mother of two teenage boys, a 15-year-old Tiger Woods in the making, and a 13-year-old passionate gamer. Wife to a mercantile mariner who has gifted me 50 exotic international holidays till date. And lately, I'm in search of an enterprising Sikh who can teach me the Bhangra. Professionally, I'm a hotelier who helps travelers to Gurgaon by providing a relaxing and pleasant stay at my property. I'm proud that I'm making a mark in a male as well as Oyo-dominated industry. My mission is to empower women travelers to travel fearlessly by opening a chain of hotels and PGs which are women safety centric. Imperial Park is a boutique property in Gurgaon. Our default location advantage, which is walking distance from the metro station, corporate hubs of Sector 44, medical institutions like Fortis and Max, and excellent connectivity to the expressway, makes us an ideal option for both discerning corporate travelers as well as leisure travelers. Being one of the few properties in our domain which is owned and operated by women, we are preferred by women travelers as well. Furthermore, Imperial Park's accessibility and ample of parking space are the value adds, especially for banqueting, conferencing, and other events.
That's quite impressive, Chandrika. I mean, I'm
So that's about
mesmerized
hotel.
with this.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. So you talked about safety. So just wanted to understand how is your hotel preparing to handle safety?
Now, customer safety along with employee safety are paramount in the current operating landscape. At Imperial Park, we've done the following three things in this regard. Firstly, we set up our safety procedures and protocols. Secondly, employees are being trained and upskilled on these protocols. Thirdly, guests have been and are being made conversant with these policies. We must understand, Rahul, that today, majority of the travelers would be extremely apprehensive and would need constant reassurance. We want all our guests to be completely relaxed and assured that when they stay with us, they are as safe as possible. And we are following stringent measures for their safety and our safety as well. That is why we're communicating with them extensively to reassure them. The six protocols that have been set up at our end are firstly screening. Screening for guests at the time of check-in is mandatory. In case there are any symptoms of fever, cough, cold, etc., the guest is required to get a doctor's examination. Also, guest travel declaration and health history declaration is mandatory and needs to be provided 24 hours prior to check-in. I would like to add that we've also modified our cancellation policy because we understand that there could be genuine contingencies and we don't want those to suffer on account of these policies. Meanwhile, in terms of employees, we're screening them twice a day and additionally as and when required. Secondly, protection. So protective gears like masks, gloves, headgears are being worn by the employees. We are also providing a safety kit to our guests, which includes a small sanitizer and a mask free of charge. Thirdly, sanitization, which is really crucial. Hygiene standards have been defined and the sanitization procedures have been set up. The sanitization of the property, rooms, guest luggage, employees, supplies, all have been factored in. We have contracted a sanitizing agency on sanitation procedures. Fourthly, restricted entry zone. So what we've done is we've declared the property to be a restricted entry zone, which means only guests and designated employees can access the property. No non-checked in guests or visitors and vendors are allowed to enter the property. Fifth, communication and coordination. We've designated support manager duties and we've assigned them to ensure that information is provided to both the guests and the relevant authorities at the earliest, and also to coordinate with the authorities as and when needed. And sixth, setting up of minimum contact points, which is absolutely essential. So we've worked on a contactless or minimum contact point policy so that the in-person interaction between employees and guests is either removed or reduced. So these are the 6 areas on which we have categorized guest safety.
Quite detailed and quite comprehensive. So just wanted to understand, you touched a point regarding contactless. So can you just throw some more light that how does your hotel plan to focus on being contactless?
Absolutely. So, Rahul, ironically, an industry that rests on personal touch will now migrate to the contactless norm. The new mantra is going to be contactless personalization. In that aspect, check-in and check-out have been digitalized, and majority of guests' interaction would now migrate to mails and telephonic conversations. It is therefore paramount that our mails and phone calls focus on personalization so that the guests can feel not only welcome but reassured as well. The other points to bring in contactless or limited contact interactions that we have set up are firstly, all documentation required for check-in is to be shared digitally. Secondly, interaction at check-in time is only limited to signing the A&D register. Something as simple as even a handshake has been completely stopped, and Namaste is the standard protocol of greeting guests that we are following. The elevator usage has been restricted to a single guest at a time. A second entry and exit has been created so that the guest does not need to access the reception lobby as that has maximum footfalls. Payments are being requested as bank transfers or through payment link to avoid cash or credit card machine touch points. In terms of housekeeping, for short stays of say 2 days, the guest would be asked to avoid housekeeping so that both the staff and the guest have minimum contact points. For long stays, the housekeeping would be performed on alternate days to minimize the contact. Similarly, turn down service has been discontinued as of now. When we speak of food and beverage, so in-room dining would be a standard as opposed to meals at the restaurant. Buffet breakfasts are being replaced by a la carte menus served as in-room service meals. Since we also have some rooms with kitchen and wet pantries, we're encouraging self-cooking to those guests who prefer to. The supplies for such guests will be organized through our designated vendors so that the guest can avoid stepping out for such chores. So this is what we started off in terms of our contactless policies, and I'm sure that these will be refined as and when they get tested.
Very interesting, very interesting. So how do you plan to maintain social distancing in your hotel with all these things coming?
Um, I think social distancing is going to be more of a norm, be it today or be it afterwards, because it is prudent to prepare for fresh waves of the disease, especially so till the time a tested vaccination is not a reality. The measures that we are taking to maintain social distancing are, we're advising that the maximum number of rooms be preferably offered on single occupancy rather than double or triple, because closed room, people to be together in closed room is something that what we're trying to avoid. Secondly, group meals is what we're going to avoid. Social functions at the banquet, if and when they follow, will adhere to social distancing norms. Entry of non-checked in guests is to be restricted for some duration, maybe even 2 quarters. Employees to be quarantined for 2 weeks on returning from home visits. Social distancing would also cover preemptive measures like debarring of entry to everyone except guests and employees, which means only the staff and the guests would be permitted to enter the property, and other people, primarily vendors, would have designated areas for delivery handover. Furthermore, Rahul, this is not an exhaustive list and it is going to be updated as and when required.
Chandrika, I'm totally impressed with the kind of things you have already planned for your guests coming in. So just wanted to understand what are your plans to keep your hotel sanitized and safe for the customers?
Sanitization, Rahul, is going to be one of the most crucial activity at a property, because this is where you can break the game. In terms of our hotel sanitization, we will need to focus on it in terms of two aspects. Firstly, the coverage, and secondly, the frequency. So widespread coverage sanitization, which would be primarily full property sanitization, will be intensive. It will be performed most likely once and if needed twice a day, and will be performed at predefined times. Secondly, more importantly, contact point sanitization will be more frequent, like maybe even hourly, and would cover sanitization of frequent contact points like elevator buttons, staircase balustrades, doorknobs, reception desk, etc. Apart from this, thirdly, a dynamic sanitization would be done, which would be need-based. We've also placed alcohol-based sanitizer at common areas so that you can immediately have a sanitization whenever required, especially for the hands. We've contracted an agency for regular sanitizing, and along with that, the housekeeping employees are being trained and skilled on sanitization. As the intention is that we want to make sanitization completely an in-house activity. This will ensure minimum entry of outside vendors, and also this will ensure that the team can handle sanitization requirements real time, which is going to be crucial. The rooms would be sanitized thoroughly after checkouts and also be aired for 6 hours before being reallocated as an add-on precaution. As of now, we're keeping a one floor empty to ensure availability of a completely sanitized floor in case of a contingency. Also, I feel at such times, it's always better to be more precautious and take as many precautions as possible rather than, being lenient about such things.
Chandrika, I'm totally amazed by your preparations, right? So just wanted to, and it's a difficult question which I'm just throwing up at you. With all these things coming in, how do you see that the cost of, of the, which has to be eventually borne by the guest, how much the cost would, increase with all these kind of services coming in?
I totally agree with you, Rahul. It's a very tough balancing act for a lot of players, and especially so the medium level players or standalone properties. Now, thankfully for us, because it's a self-owned property, the rentals are not there. That has to be factored in. Despite that, it's going to be a huge strain. But what we do also see is that there will be lesser number of employees that we will work with. Some of the employees will not be on full salaries. That is one way we want to take, we would be taking leaves. Also, I feel there would be cases where earlier if you were allocating a room on double or triple occupancies, those rooms might now come up on single occupancy, which might possibly increase your room nights. But again, I would suggest that this is not the time to increase your costs, despite the fact that your overheads would have increased, because it's going to be a price sensitive market. provide value in the next 2 quarters, even if it's at the cost of not making profits, and possibly look at stepping up tariffs only in the last quarter. I think as of now, the concentration is only on taking all safety measures to ensure both the guests and the employees are safe. It's important to have your business existing 2 quarters later rather than talking about profits just now. Just factor in as much as is just needed for you to cross these 2 next quarters. That is what my advice would be.
Lovely. Because you have talked about industry per se, just wanted to understand what do you think that how would this industry would shape up going forward?
Rahul, I think the hospitality industry is going to be different in the immediately following 6 months. How long will it take to return to normalcy and what the trajectory might be is anyone's guess. Yes, but I'm certain that this is an opportunity to ideate about possible changes in travel behavior and prepare for it. What I do see happening is that travel will start. Definitely, it will. And in all likelihood, it would start with a corporate or a business traveler and maybe possibility of medical travelers as well. Yet at the same time, corporates will be wary about choosing a property, and some of them could be in a catch 22 situation with the cash flows not permitting booking of 5-star properties, which could be more reliable in terms of being safe versus budget properties or smaller standalone properties, which could make economic sense, but safety standards could have a level of ambiguity. With cost constraints, I do see quite a few corporates moving to mid-segment hotels or maybe standalone properties. And it is an amazing opportunity for such property. That is why I keep on saying, do not concentrate on the profits as of now. Create your brand, create a value. And that is why properties like us, we need to invest in just now is to drop extensive safety protocols and communicate the same to our corporate and other retail guests. I think leisure traveler is someone who's going to step in the last. It's going to be the last category to open up. But it will eventually open up because per se we are social beings and would want to be out traveling, celebrating, meeting people. That's what is there. And we have the resilient ability to bounce back. Despite all wars, despite all pandemics, we've always bounced back. So that is something which I'm dead sure will happen. It just needs some more time. I also see the good news in terms of the fact that there's going to be more of domestic travel now, because ideally people would not want to step out on international travels because that could be scarier than traveling domestically. And also we've seen the brilliant response that the Indian government has taken towards fighting COVID-19. So that gives us a lot of reassurance in terms of traveling domestically. So possibility of opportunities for smaller resorts where the rooms are not close, or maybe even unheard of gateways which are closer to where you stay. Those are the kind of properties which would benefit. The stays are going to be for smaller durations, maybe just a weekend stay or just one night stay. That's the way the travel of leisure travelers is going to be. But what I'm totally confident about is that travel is going to bounce back. Yes. Even if it doesn't the first quarter, third quarter, definitely.
Quite interesting. You talked about leisure, you talked about corporate. What Imperial Park and Chandrika is betting on? Corporate or leisure going forward?
So Rahul, our target audience is a mixed bag. So we do have corporates with direct tie-ups, and apart from that, we've got a huge retail segment with whom we share a direct relationship. And I feel that yes, corporate is going to open up first for essential travels, because though Zoom is a perfect answer, but eventually we need to meet in person. And that is going to happen. I also feel that a business traveler is someone who would be ready to take more risk than other people. Say someone like you or me as an entrepreneur would be ready to take more risk because of what we're going through just now. So that's another travel category I see opening up. So primarily between the corporate traveler and the business traveler is what we see. Apart from that, because of our location advantage in terms of being closer to hospitals, we also see domestic medical travelers. Those are the ones we see bouncing back, and that is why um, we've started a huge exercise of uh, guest engagement, mailing them, speaking to them, informing them of what we are doing. At the same time, I do feel that travelers also need to be extremely uh, careful. They need to be precautious, and we understand their apprehension, and they need to be in this state and come out and ask the properties that they're booking about everything that they would be doing for the guest safety. That's the best way to approach this.
So, how do you think, especially if we talk about marketing, because you have been in constant touch with most of your clients, how are your marketing plans are planned for, especially keeping hygiene, safety, and sanitization in mind?
So for us, being a small property, getting guests has never been too difficult. Here, we primarily believe in engaging with the guests. So marketing for us is engaging in the guests, and as of now, the engagement is centered towards assurance and removing all kind of apprehensions. For us, we engage in marketing in terms of talking to our guests, value letters, and constant engagement apart from utilizing the social media.
Very nice, very nice. Just wanted to understand one more thing. Do you think using the Arogya Setu app, because it shows a it gives you a lot of information, because many of the organizations, what I have heard lately, that they have started to ask their employees to use that particular app before coming to the office, right? So do you plan to make this as a mandatory for maybe your employees or the guests who are coming in at your hotel?
I would suggest during such times, the best thing is to pick up the phone and call. Why rely on something, even something like Arogya Setu? You've got our numbers. Call us up, ask us, and trust me, if there is any scope of ambiguity in terms of the environment outside, we would be the first people to tell you that do not travel, cancel your trip. This is just not the time for it. So my sincere advice is, rather than relying on something which is again third person like an app, develop a relationship with the property where you intend to stay. Call them up, ask them. And in terms of, for us, where we've got bookings and we know that someone is expected and the situation is not conducive for him to travel and stay, we would go out of our way to inform him or her about it. I think that is the policy to adopt, as per me.
Chandrika, I threw so many difficult questions at you, and trust me, you answered them so well that I'm totally floored. I don't have any difficult questions anymore, and just the last one, which I'll put it discussing with you. So, how do you feel that? I mean, is there anything you would like to inform your future guests coming in?
Yes, I think I just have a couple of advices. Rahul, my first advice is, do travel only if you need to. Ask yourself, is there an option? Is there a way out? Is there a substitute? Can you do this without traveling? And if to all these questions the answer is a resounding no, that I cannot do it, in that case, travel. Otherwise, just postpone it. Do not do it. Step number one. Step number two, while making preparations and deciding upon a place to book, please research. Please do all possible kind of recce. Call up someone you know in that city. Ask them if they know about this property, about this hotel. See, in case you're traveling to a five-star property, of course, I don't think you have reason to be wary about. But for smaller properties, if you're a budget-conscious traveler, please find out about that property. If you have someone in the city, ask them to find out. If you do not get their numbers, talk to them. Do not, even if you want to make a booking through an OTA, I would still suggest speak to the property and go to a property possibly where you stayed before. Go to a property where your friend has stayed before, your relative has stayed before, friend's friend has stayed before, anyone who can vouch for that. And if you don't need to travel, please stay put at home. No point in taking a risk. I know it hampers my business if I don't have people coming in, but sincerely, that's my advice.
Very nice. Lovely. Lovely. So thank you so much, Chandrika, for your time. And it was quite a, detailed discussion with you. And I totally appreciate your confidence. And I foresee that there would be a lot of changes happening in travel industry per se. But I'm quite hopeful that things would improve for our battleman. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Rahul. It's always an inspiration to speak to you. And I agree with you on the note that you're ending. We as humans have the resolute ability to bounce back, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chandrika. Thank you.